welcome you back to Communique 14.
Before we move on, we would like to take this opportunity to thank all our sponsors, partners, and supporting organizations who have helped and supported us in our endeavors. Corporate gift sponsor, Sterlite Technologies. Delegate kit sponsor, Protinus Technologies. Webcast partner, Epitome Solutions.
Hospitality partner, Holiday Inn. Digital media partner, M2M Paper and Voice and Data. Radio partner, Radio City 91.1 FM.
Supporting organizations, Asia Cloud Computing Association, Cerebral Business Research, Device Management Forum, IoT Insights, ITU APT, WiMAX Forum, DECD Forum, Broadband India Forum, Acto, Telecom Watch, Cable Quest Broadband, TUG, and Voice and Data.
I would like to remind this August gathering that the entire seminar is being webcast live on communique14sitm.estv.in.
You can also follow the seminar through our Twitter handle, which is @communique_ITS. Take part in the conversation with hashtag Communique14 to win exciting prizes. There has been a significant revolution in the communications arena, where in just the last few years, we have moved beyond simply using our machines to connect with other people and can now program them to connect directly to one another, allowing for the collection and processing of information to an unprecedented scale. Moreover, its implementation would do the same, make talking devices ubiquitous. The Internet of Things is a scenario in which objects, animals, or people are provided with unique identifiers and the ability to transfer data over a network without requiring human-to-human or human-to-computer interaction. The upcoming panel discussion aims to unlock the new possibilities presented by the interaction of physical things with the world of Internet. It is in this spirit that we'd like to introduce the topic of the first panel discussion of Communique 14, the next frontier of conjugation, from Internet of People to Internet of Everything.
To control the flow of dialogue, we have with us the moderator of the panel discussion, Mr. Kalki Yasas, Director, Consulting Service, Salesforce. I request, sir, to please come up on stage. Mr. Kalki Yasas is currently managing Global Shared Services, Consulting and Implementation for the past 2 years. He has over 15 plus years of business consulting, implementation, change management, product and delivery management, and sales support experience in CRM and enterprise solutions. Sir has worked with organizations including GE Capital, Accenture Solutions Limited, and Infosys Technologies. Sir, we welcome you to Communique 14.
Next, I would like to call upon the panel Mr. Sandeep Agarwal, Senior Vice President, Engineering R&D Services, Happiest Mind Technologies. Sir is currently working as Senior VP and Head of Engineering R&D Group, Product Engineering Services in Happiest Mind Technologies Limited, the fastest growing service company focused on next generation disruptive technologies of cloud, mobile analytics, big data, and social and unified communications. His current focus is on M2M and software-defined data centers. Sir is a recipient of Mindtree's prestigious Chairman's Award and Citizen Award and has headed the PM Council at Mindtree for the year 2007-2008, where he worked before joining Happiest Mind. Beyond his role, Mr. Agarwal was a speaker on outsourcing seminars in international conference in China, Agile workshop as a part of Global PM Conference, and also a panel member during Communique 2010. Apart from technical contributions, Sir is a core member of Words of Peace, a global non-profit organization to support and spread message of peace promoted by its founder, Mr. Prem Rawat. Sir, we welcome you to Communique 14.
Next, I would like to call upon stage Mr. Ravi Chandran Bhaskaran, Business Development Head, India and South Asia, Twitter. Sir is a mobile and internet professional with a strong track record of building products and partnerships to drive user and usage growth. He's passionate about the journey from idea to execution, leading teams and getting people on the internet. His major strengths include digital media, digital marketing, mobile apps, product management, new products and innovation, strategic alliances and partnerships, P&L management, and marketing strategy. Sir, your revered presence is an honor for us. I request you to please take your seat on the panel.
I now take this opportunity to invite on the panel Mr. Indranil Das, Vice President, Ericsson India Global Services. Sir has more than 18 years of experience in the ICT industry and is currently the Vice President, Head of CSI ADM and PMO Business Unit at Ericsson Global Services Center in India. Sir is responsible for leading and driving Ericsson's ICT vision within global services, working with global clients in the telecommunications, utilities and media, and entertainment industry verticals. Prior to Ericsson, Sir has worked with IBM Global Business Services as a director in the communications and distribution sector, where he has made a significant contribution in organizational transformation. Sir has been instrumental in establishing the global delivery model during his stint at PwC and was also responsible for managing many large global accounts. Sir, SITM welcomes you to Communique 14.
Next, I would like to invite on stage Mr. Amol Deshpande, Head IT Services, Mahindra E2O Reva. Sir is Head IT Services, Automotive Division, Mahindra Vehicle Manufacturers Limited at Mahindra Reva, where he heads the international operations. Sir is a Master of Science in Mechanical Engineering from the University of Utah, USA. Sir has bagged an award for the Best IT-Driven Innovation in Automotive Businesses. He's also won the Future CIO of India Award in 2012. His primary interests include customer experience, mobility, cloud-based solutions, augmented reality, and virtual reality. Sir, we welcome you to Communique 14.
I would now like to invite on stage Mr. Ravi Manivasagan, Director, Solutions Architecture and Design, Dell. Sir has over 21 years of experience in the IT industry. At Dell, he is the Director and Global Head for Solutions Design, Application Services, primarily focusing on manufacturing, retail, CPG, energies and utilities, travel, telecom, hospitality, education, and state and local government verticals. He also heads the Indian business for application services and manages the technical sales for application services across APJ. He is responsible for providing futuristic business and technology solutions to clients across the globe. His team of solution architects work with clients to design futuristic architectures and solutions that would enable global customers achieve their technology vision. Prior to Dell, Sir has worked with Wipro and TCS for over 18 years. He has held responsibilities in solution design, pre-sales, strategy and planning, product management, marketing and alliance management, competency building, and client relationship management. Sir, we welcome you to Communique 14.
Our final esteemed panelist is Mr. Syed Mudassar, Delivery Lead Strategic Communication at Cognizant. Mr. Mudassar is a delivery leader for strategic communications for UK accounts at Cognizant. He's a recognized thought leader and has conceptualized multiple solutions in the digital telco area. He's written papers and spoken at industry forums like the TMF. Sir, SITM welcomes you to Communique 14.
I would now request our moderator, Mr. Kalki Yasas, to kindly initiate the discussion.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kalki Yashas. I work with Salesforce.com. It's my honor and privilege to be here, and I'd like to thank you all for inviting me. I'm ex-Symbiosis myself, so it's very nice to actually be back, within the folds of a family that I've known for so many years. I haven't actually been a very regular alumnus, I must confess, but I was out of the country for a fair number of years. But it's great to be back here and see the campus. I think I was here for the Prevision, and I thought it was a very impressive presentation, so congratulations to all of you. So what we have today for myself and my set of esteemed colleagues is to essentially talk about the Internet of Things and the transition of the Internet of People to the Internet of Everything. So what do we really have? I mean, in terms of practical applications, you've got new product introduction, you've got marketing trends, you've got field service applications, buying experience for consumers, propagation of technology and reach into emerging markets, right? Healthcare, and dare I say, even defense and governmental applications. So the Internet of Things and the ability to actually hook devices up to one another, share information, extend that, is actually not a concept that's new. So it's been around for a while. What is new, though, is that every day, every week, every year, every month, technology companies, product companies, consumer organizations are finding new ways to exploit this interconnected world. So with that, I'd like to begin this panel discussion by asking a few of my colleagues here, what they think are some of the trends that they observe. Where do they see the marketplace evolving? And I'd like to start with Mr. Amol. If you'd like to call out for us, what do you see as some of the top changes that the Internet of Things is bringing about, to our marketplace?
Sure. Thanks, Kalki. Good afternoon. It's really not fair to have this kind of an interaction after a post-lunch session. After a heavy lunch, it's nice. It's very nice to be here. Thank you all of you to giving us an opportunity to be here. Internet of Things. A most commonly used word these days, probably one of the most hyped words. Like Kalki said, it's not new, but there is a re-release like you have in movies, So the old story with new packaging, so that's something. But here it is with much more stuff packed with it. I come from a background where I would like to see things not only from an internet technology perspective, but how they are impacting life around us. How it is impacting the consumer behavior, how it is impacting the product strategies, and how we look at the products. I see that Internet of Things is there. There would be a lot of discussion on machine-to-machine connectivity, machines doing a lot of things. We have known many things which are there with Internet of Things. We would know some more in the times to come. But it's very important that how it is affecting us as a human being, as a consumer, and various stakeholders in the given ecosystem. If you just reflect upon a few years back, probably when some of you were into the schools, probably into your, just immediately after your kindergarten or primary schools, the way you used to have a lookout at the products, the way you used to look out at how a product purchase is happening, a product design is happening versus how it is today, it has changed. You do not do the things the way you were doing just few years back. Few things which were a technologically advanced feature, which was a premium, has become a commodity in just 1 year time frame. Having a CD player in a car was considered to be one of the very, very luxurious features. Today, you go for any new car, what you expect is that at least MP3 to chalna hi chahiye. You cannot expect something without that. The next generation probably would say that, okay, Bluetooth nahi hai, so then it's not worth it. So the things are changing, and I see that Internet of Things is impacting us in many more ways than we are looking at it. It need not be only the internet connectivity, but various forms of connectivity. From a product company perspective, and from the product research perspective, there is a lot to come from the standardization on how it will connect and how it will take the entire ecosystem to deliver what really the Internet of Things is promising to us.
Thank you very much, Amol. I'd like to actually pose the same question to Ravi from Twitter. Could you tell us, sir, in your words, what do you see as an organization that's at the forefront of messaging and getting people connected? What do you see as the impact of the Internet of Things, from a marketplace perspective?
Thanks, Kalki. It's a pleasure to be here. You guys have an awesome campus. I'm just so psyched to be here. It's a very interesting topic, and I'd love to talk a lot about it. But I'd really like to focus on a couple of aspects. When you think about Internet of Things, all of us think that it's something that is not human, but it will really make a difference in our lives when we start connecting to it, right? That's when the role of a company like Twitter comes into play. You just do a cursory glance on Twitter today, and you'll see a bunch of objects tweeting, right? And so Internet of Things, as they rightly pointed out, is not something that's the future. It's already there. Bunch of use cases where it's been really effective. For example, an alert management service, right? An alert management service is really of no use unless a weather alert or a quake alert is I see it on my Twitter timeline or one of my social networks. So imagine when there's an earthquake and you get a tweet saying that there's a 7 magnitude earthquake right now and do something about it. So until that happens, these things really carry a little meaning to us. I think that's where Twitter as a platform, Twitter is the only platform which is live, which is public, and anyone can converse on the platform. That's where the duty of the platform lies. And we think this is going to be one of the biggest areas of growth for us in terms of bringing more use cases onto the platform.
Thank you, Ravi. Over to Mr. Sandeep. What are your thoughts on the subject?
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Like everybody said, it's a pleasure to come back here again and interact with this crowd who's actually the next generation, who's going to define what Internet of Things is going to be actually in the future. So lovely to interact with you. So what we see is instead of just Internet of People and converting to Internet of Everything, we saw the 3 eras, basically: the Internet of Information or Knowledge, the Internet of People, which primarily was driven by the social, and now the Internet of Things. And we generally don't refer within our company as well as Internet of Things, actually. We call it as Internet of Business, because really what's changing because of this connected world is the business dimensions are changing. What used to be the traditional model of probably an automobile, selling a car, is no longer just selling a car. It's actually selling a service, right? So servitization is becoming the norm in which this particular industry is going to change. We are not going to say more verticalization. Retail today can't depend only on retail data. It can't just have inventory data. It needs to have social data. It needs to have banking data. It needs to have the logistics, transport data to just check where your equipments are going to be. So I see 3 major factors in which IoT is going to affect. One is the companies or the enterprises are going to change business models. They're looking at more ways to get increased revenues. The customer experience is the second one, which we expect a major drive for that, because earlier there was 4 more layers in between before a product used to reach to a customer. Now the companies wants to directly interact with the customer, even for the next generation roadmap, which actually is customer defined. And the third is, of course, the customer service. So predictive analysis plays a major role in that particular stuff, where you can actually diagnose equipment that you have produced in a much better way because you are the producer of that particular equipment, rather than a technician going home and actually trying to diagnose the problem and solution. So these 3 aspects, because of this, the business, the competition, the way we used to do the products is going to change. And that's the major factor we see as Internet of Business.
Thank you, Mr. Sandeep. You made some good points, and I just want to call out a few of those. You spoke about the fact that for companies or corporations, the business applications of investing in this type of technology are probably what drives their interest, right? From a front-end customer-facing organization's perspective, it's probably the service element, well, service comes later, at least the experience of the customer buying your product, and how does he feel at the end of that buying cycle, and subsequently followed by what they would call out to be a good service experience is what drives behavior here. So I'd like to turn this over to Mr. Ravi Mani to kind of understand what are the use cases that you see, how can we translate these sort of emphasis areas for corporations, for consumers, and what happens post-sale into practical use cases that you see in the industry.
Sure, Kalki. First of all, thank you very much for the opportunity. Good afternoon, students. You are really rocking. From the services organization perspective, I feel there is a huge potential. We are expecting about 12 billion to 50 billion devices to be connected through Internet of Things by about 2020. That's a huge amount, okay? And the current expectation is about 10 billion devices already connected now. There is a research organization by name Machina Research Organization, which is one of the leaders in the Internet of Things space. They are predicting a revenue of about $948 billion every year from Internet of Things. That's a huge one, okay? This includes revenue from devices, from services, from networking, all aspects. And for the telecom or mobile operators alone, this would fetch close to about $35 billion every year as an incremental revenue. So the potential is huge. And if you look at Internet of Things, it's not 10 years or 20 years from now. It's already happening. It's there on the field. I would like to take about 5 use cases, okay, where things are happening right away. And that could serve as simple examples for the kind of innovation that is going to come in the future, okay. The first one is ThyssenKrupp. It's one of the leading lift manufacturer. In certain cities and certain buildings, they've connected all these elevators to cloud. Each of these elevators send the real-time data to the cloud, which gets monitored by a team, okay? And based on the data what they monitor, they take preventive maintenance. This saves a huge amount of loss of life and damage. Imagine if the collision of lifts, the lifts are not operating, the kind of impact it creates in the both the personal lives and business lives. It's a huge impact what they're doing. The second one is GlowCap. This is a pill box where it sends alerts to patients, okay, to take their medicines on time. And when the time comes, the pill box actually glows. And if you're not ready to take the pill, it alerts, it makes sounds, it screams, and does everything just to ensure that you're taking the pill, okay? And what happens is, if you're not taking the pill, it sends a message to the doctor. And if you have taken the pill, it sends the message to the doctor. So the doctor is able to ensure that the prescription discipline is maintained, okay? And it also sends an alert to the nearby pharmacy to refill the medicines. So everybody is happy, okay? The patient is taking the pills and he is healthy. The doctor ensures that his prescriptions are followed, and the pharmacy is happy because the orders are booked. The third one is TomTom. You would have heard this name, you would have used it. It uses two-way mobile machine-to-machine communications, okay? It takes the data on real-time basis from millions of users across 22 countries. And it builds real-time traffic management map. And it does the analysis. There are algorithms which do these analysis on real-time basis. It actually sends that feedback to the individual navigation systems so that the optimization happens there and the optimized route is given to the drivers. The fourth example is very interesting. You would have heard about General Motors OnStar Business Services. It's there for the last 17 years. It has about 6 million users in the United States, okay? And you can subscribe to about some $19 per year, and it provides some fantastic service. It has an advanced collision detection system, okay, where your car meets with an accident, an airbag explodes, okay? The minute it does, it sends an SOS to an emergency care and a police. So the emergency care knows the location of your car, okay? And then sometimes it can even monitor the kind of injury, okay? So the emergency care can know what's the kind of injury, and then they can come up with the kind of medication required, okay? It also has a feature called stolen vehicle tracking system, okay? Where once you report your vehicle is stolen, it can spot the location of your vehicle, the speed at which it travels, and the direction of the movement of the vehicle. Okay? It also has a slow down vehicle system, where suppose your car is stolen, you can actually alert and then tell OnStar to slow down the vehicle. So that if there is a vehicle theft, after 30 kilometers, the vehicle cannot move, it will stop. On top of it, it also has another interesting system, which is remote ignition blockade system. Okay? So what it happens is, you can tell the police to initiate this. So if there is a vehicle theft, if the thief stops the vehicle, and then he'll never be able to start again. There's one more interesting thing, which is the incentive to the drivers who actually have a low mileage. Okay, so the odometer reading is sent to the insurance companies on a monthly basis. So if you're a low mileage driver, your insurance actually comes down. Okay, and then again, anti-theft, the insurance comes down. The last one is the Ideal Life example. It's a wireless device manufacturing company. It provides a wireless scale. Okay, and then this is used by congestive heart failure patients. The treatment is very expensive. There are about 5.3 million patients in US alone. Okay? What they do is, they just have to stand on this particular scale about 5 minutes, less than 5 minutes a day, and your data from your body, especially the weight, is sent to the doctor's server. And then when there is a discrepancy or the abnormality in the weight, then immediately the process gets triggered. So all the preventive maintenance process gets triggered. Okay? So these are wonderful cases. I just want to sum up with one kind of imagination I like to mention. See, if this trend continues, then what's going to happen is, we would be outsourcing our personal health to certain agencies. I'm imagining a situation where my personal health would be monitored by a call center, and then they would be identifying what's the kind of reaction my body is doing, and they'll be advising what needs to be done. It's a great situation to be in, and it's nice, it's a welcome situation.
Thank you very much, Ravi. Those were very interesting examples. Some, tending to science fiction that's happening today, right? I mean, you guys probably are more familiar with devices. Probably you all started your education, or college careers with smartphones. It took me 4 years to buy my first, third generation phone, because I didn't see why, when we were in the office, we could use the landlines and call up people. Anyhow. So I think of the examples that were given, it was very interesting to see that, healthcare came up, and at least in 2 cases, we had the automotive industry actually embracing this technology and finding new applications for it, right? So I think I want to go back to Mr. Amol and kind of, get his sense for where he sees the automotive industry kind of expanding on the use of, the connected device concept.
First, I would like to comment on the healthcare getting outsourced. Man, I would not be able to order a cheese pizza if you are having a problems with your blood pressure and cholesterol. Okay.
So I'm sure there'll be a day when you'll be asking for freedom from machines.
You know what, even though Kalki asked me a question on the automobile part, but it's the way I heard various gentlemen on the dais speak, it is a feeling that, we are really moving to the matrix world. It would not be far away, probably sometime down the line, that we really are working on to those metrics, and probably will need some Neo to save us. Okay. So coming back to the automotive business, my friend Sandeep did mention about various things which are there in terms of automotive scenario. And we did hear about the OnStar program of General Motors. These are the things which are around and which are being talked about. Kalki, I would like to kind of answer your question more in the India context. Okay, these kind of things are prevailing into Indian markets in bits and pieces. Example I can quote is whatever the examples which Sandeep was talking from a business analytics perspective, from the social analytics perspective, from Twitter perspective, and so on and so forth. Parts of this are already available. So Mahindra E2O already you have obtained number of features. I don't know if you know this, but there is a predictive repair which is already happening. So you would hardly see a vehicle going to a repair shop when you encounter a problem. It is your mobile phone which tells you, you know what, your vehicle is going to have a problem after this much amount of time. So within now and then, you do something about it. And by the way, if you are interested, I can book a service request for you right away at a choice of your workshop. So these are the things which are happening. What else is happening? It is not something which is imaginary. I can quote an example of Mahindra E2O. It's a product where the entire vehicle is controlled by a smartphone. Now, where we see it, some of the feedbacks which we get onto this is that it does not look like a conventional product because there is no key. If the communication is happening through an RFID kind of a communication platform, so the things are going to change. You are able to unlock a vehicle, lock a vehicle, geotag a vehicle, remote start a vehicle, maintain the temperatures what you want to, charge the vehicle, stop the charge. See, it's become an ecosystem. It's not the same old product anymore. It's not the same old automobile anymore. The impact, another thing which I feel is there from an automotive industry perspective, globally, is in terms of, something interesting happened, not in terms of the Internet of Things, but in terms of how we do things. The unit of measures are changing. The travel distance, what is the distance unit anymore between two cities or two places of a city? It's not in kilometers, it's in time. Given the traffic congestions which are there on the roads, globally, people don't measure the distance between two places in terms of kilometers or something. It's 40 minutes, 30 minutes, 15 minutes, 10 minutes, and that too they will tell depending on the time of the day, what time of the day you are traveling. So it's changing. What do you do with it? Today we have got a captive people on metro, all B grade and C grade cities of India and worldwide. There are people are sitting in their vehicles for at least 3 hours a day for an average 30 kilometers commute. Now there is an opportunity. There is an opportunity that how Internet of Things is able to transform the things. It's not you alone. Even though you are alone, there is enough data which is available on the average occupancy of a particular four-wheeler, which is 1.6, which is not a very good number from India, like a country where the number of vehicles on the road and the number of people, there is a very big mismatch into it. If a four-wheeler, which is the capacity average of 5 seaters, is running on an average 1.6 to 1.7 occupancy, that's a bigger problem from an overall country perspective. However, there are so many such 1.6 and 1.7s which are around you who are in the same level. You talked about the travel predictions, right? So what do you do with it when I'm inside that vehicle? You cannot get out, you are stuck in a traffic, you have got that captive time of that particular consumer, which is a consumer, by the way. You can give him healthcare, you can give him entertainment, you can give him information, education, obtain opportunities are there. What do you do with those captive 3 hours when that person is having the full attention of mind? In today's scenario, most of my friends would tell you that in the today's age, what is the most important and the most costliest thing is getting the attention and those eyeballs. Average attention time is less than 10 seconds. If you do not have an attention of an individual who is a prospect for any product or services for more than 10 seconds, there is a very good chance that you have lost him. So how is that Internet of Things is going to help in achieving this? How does that platform communicate? It's not about this. There are companies, there are many cases where people are operating the entire things like a complete fleet management. So there are drastic examples, like there is a fleet management, and I knew a guy who used to sit across the lunch table in my university days and always used to refer to an Excel sheet on his computer. So one fine day I was very curious that every day around lunchtime, what do you do with that particular sheet? He tells me I manage the flour mills in India. So by sitting there, this fellow was managing the flour mills, which he was running in India, in places like Mumbai, Pune, and some parts of North India, just by doing some fixing rates and making money. And that used to be his pocket money, if you will, at the time of lunch. So this is what it is enabling people. It is creating new business models. You never heard of an automobile getting sold on an online portal, which we did yesterday, by the way. So the Scorpio happens to be the first vehicle which is getting booked on Snapdeal. So these are the things you never expected, that real estate could be sold on to these things. The reason for that is there is a social collaboration available. The high ticket items are trying to get into that particular space and trying to make an impact. And there is a tremendous reliance on how Internet of Things is going to help. The products are becoming more and more complicated. The roadside services are going away, where you could repair your product conventionally. You could take your car to a roadside mechanic and he would fix it. That's not happening anymore because everything is getting diagnostics. So there are too many trends which are happening. However, there are some challenges also. There is not one single platform on which everybody is communicating. There is no one single protocol. There is no one language which everybody understands or everybody speaks. Yes, we are into an era or a time where the number of IP addresses globally are more than the overall human population. But definitely we are still onto a different platform. What is there is a challenge from all the service providers and the integration organizations and the product companies worldwide, and from people like you, that to create those bridges, create that platform and reinforce this thing so that this ecosystem, the $940 billion kind of an revenue which you talked about, can be realized. So that's what we expect from the overall ecosystem perspectives to move forward.
Thank you, Amol. Since we are at SITM and this is a telecom seminar, I'd like to ask Mr. Indraneel, who has vast telco industry experience. My question to you, Mr. Indraneel, is telco has traditionally been a very hardware, systems, device-centric industry, right? Protocols, your exchanges, your routers, these are the ones that actually drive what gets delivered to a customer. What I'd like to ask you is, based on this concept of connected devices, and also the fact that the internet is open and accessible to everybody, what are you seeing in terms of consumer behavior now driving change for telco organizations?
Okay. So I think it's what you see today, and I think you mentioned the Internet of Things is a reality. It's no longer that a futuristic thing, right? What we see among the consumers is that they don't want any, let's say, phone or equipment anymore. More and more they want solution, right? And in a way, we are very much focused on, all the companies today are very much focused on, be it operators, be it the OEMs, on the solution. So we don't consider, for example, Ericsson as an organization no longer an OEM. We are no longer just a equipment provider. We are transforming our organization towards being a ICT, where network and IT comes together. We are positioning ourselves as a solution provider more and more, and that's based on the consumer needs, right? And the consumers are more and more demanding because the experience you are going to give, suppose you are today, I'm sure many people doing Google here, right? And if you are not getting your response within a certain time, you'll be thinking, what's wrong? Either something wrong with the application, or with the network, or with the IT infrastructure. And today, what is happening, many of the operators, they don't control that entire value chain by themselves because they will outsource one part of their network to one company, IT to another company, and then application to another company, and then handset is from another company. So what is happening now? We are working with, let's say, both in India and outside, AT&Ts of the world, where we are actually doing the full stack implementation and experimentation in terms of the customer experience, right? So that we can pinpoint if something is not working properly, where is the issue? Whether it's the issue in the IT layer or application layer or in the network layer. And that's how the entire ecosystem is evolving now. And another thing what I am seeing, and I'm glad that you talked about connected car and other things and connected health. I see some of the operators today are no longer just providing the basic communication services. So for example, there are companies or operators in US and India, they are providing financial services in a way. We are doing mobile banking, right? There are operators who are doing mHealth, right? They're creating a platform. There are operators who are now, for example, AT&T launched with Ericsson and other players a connected car platform. They launched it in Mobile World Congress. So these are becoming reality. So I see the OEMs are changing to become more solution provider. The operators are getting into areas beyond they are providing the dumb pipe, right? They are trying to getting into new areas. And there is a lot of convergence going to happen, and it's all driven by the consumers today.
That's a great answer. If I can summarize what I heard from you, what you're saying is that buying behavior or consumers, customers are really not looking at their ownership of a particular product, but they're actually keen on looking at the end-to-end experience, which is the solution and the overall service. So in the particular example that you gave where your Google site doesn't come up, you don't really care so much about what's wrong with your device, but you just want to have the problem fixed. Right? So in other words, from a competitive standpoint, all these different OEMs, solution providers, product companies are forced in a way to actually intercollaborate so that they can manage that customer experience. Because it's no longer just your particular product that has a bearing. Your product may be one that is viewed well in the marketplace, but if it doesn't work well, interoperate with all these different service providers, then you still might end up leaving the consumer with a poor purchasing experience. Right? You kind of closed on saying that there is convergence happening. So my next question that I wanted to ask you was, how do you see this convergence taking place between the virtual and the physical elements of these products that are actually connected? And if you could also specifically speak from the telco standpoint, that would be very helpful. Thank you.
So that's a great question, Kalki. I think we don't realize the way the physical and virtual or digital world is coming together. Go back maybe 1985 when we have the PC. Actually, that's where the real desktop PC came. Before that, it was the computer in another room, huge machine, lot of physical distance. Then it became something on your desktop, right? 1985. 1995 onwards, we got into this mobile phone. But that time it was a voice, right? Just voice. So that replaced our landline phone to some extent, right? So the distance became smaller. We started carrying that mobile phone, right? And we started using that mobile phone for surfing around 2005 or a little bit earlier, right? So the distance, which was in a different room, you don't carry your phone, you don't carry your desktop, that diminished. That's something on your desktop, on your laptop, and in your pocket, right? And today where we are, where actually the sensors are sitting on our skin, like wearables. Or we are having the shoes from Reebok or Nike that tracks your energy level, or you have a Fitband. That's where we are. And I think Ravi mentioned about we outsource the healthcare, right? And you gave some examples, nice examples, right? And you said it's an imagination, but I think it's going to be reality. The reason I'm saying this, UK healthcare service, they are partnered with a company, I believe the name is Proteus, and they are a Silicon Valley company. They already raised $300 million. And UK healthcare service, they are partnering with them to test out something unique. And it's basically a smart pill, basically what you said. It's a ingestible computing. So that smart pill has antennas, okay? And it goes inside your body and tracks whether you have taken the right pill at the right time, and it transmits that signal and how the pill is working. It transmits that to a banded-like
antenna that you are having on your chest, and that transmits that to your app. Okay? So that's what is happening, and that can be monitored by a call center, isn't it? So whether we like it or not, so now what has happened, the physical and digital converge so much, the digital became part of our body, or becoming part of our body, right? What next? So if you see, so for the physical world actually dictated the digital world. So digital world mimic physical world. For example, we have desktop, we have file system, file cabinet, file system. We trash things, we say trash folder, right? So the digital world actually mimic the physical world. But now what is happening, the digital world is actually going to dictate the physical world. The physical world, that's the expectation from our generation Z or Z, whatever you call it, that the digital world will dictate and physical world will mimic digital world. There are instances, and I'm sure many of you have gone through that, where you actually made friends in Facebook or some social sites first before they actually became your friend, and you met that friend in person, right? So that's what is happening now. And you move forward, what is going to happen? The digital world actually will take over. We don't want to be subservient to a machine, but it may become a reality. I stop there because it may get scary after this.
So we spoke about the experience that people, have and the transformation of the experience through the Internet of Things. But at what cost, right? Whatever, Indranil described just now, borders on scary paranoid. We're talking the Matrix kind of world here, right? So my question essentially is to Mr. Mudassar, what do you think are the elements of security, privacy that are essentially, getting impacted in this space? And can we essentially control this? Do we have an option to essentially set some boundaries around how these devices interoperate with each other and the whole convergence of physical versus digital?
So the question is like how the Internet of Things and security will interplay, right? Yes, I mean the physical sensors will have to be protected definitely. Like I was just mentioning in the lunch break with the colleagues here, a driver in New Delhi told me that there was a telematics device on a Volvo bus that he was driving. That telematics device was sending some photographs back to the operations center on the backside and the sides of the bus. And whenever he required to take a break, he would cover that telematics device with atta, wheat flour, and he would relax because that would disable that device from sending signals back to the operations center. And when he was ready to drive again, he would remove the atta and then he would start again. So if a driver can actually subvert your telematics device or your sensor, we definitely have to think as designers, as solution architects, on how we can build security in every cultural context. Because in China, they might subvert it in a different manner. In India, they put atta, they might put a different device on, different things. So that is, security has a human aspect to it. So we are used to sci-fi, people sitting with laptops and hijacking entire networks. But in India, it is very simple to do, we don't need laptops. And so that's my opinion, of course.
So as a follow-on on that, Mr. Mudassar, what are you seeing as applications in, emerging countries, markets like India, where the needs are very different? We essentially don't have the same reach. What a consumer essentially evaluates as being important is also very different. And I'm talking just beyond, the middle class, which typically probably mimics behavior in the West. Right. What about the larger population? What do you see as applications for the India marketplace?
Right. As Tarun also said in the morning, that it's a huge market in India. The Internet of Things has not reached everyone in India. Take a farmer, for example, in a farm. If you go to a bazaar who is a farmer selling a goat, for example, he makes a guess on the weight of that animal before he actually enters into that transaction. If there is a sensor in the hoof of this animal which tells the farmer the exact weight of that animal, he would probably negotiate from a position of strength. He would know that my animal weighs 30 kilos and I need this much, I will not sell below this. A small sensor in the hoof of the animal, and you don't even need a smartphone, right? You can call the goat's number and you get an SMS back. Okay, this goat with this number weighs 30 kilos. It's a simple use case, but for a farmer it means that if he has a flock of 30 goats, if per goat he is making 4,000 more, he's made a significant more money through the Internet of Things. And these are practical use cases because today, we all look at the West, but today we are starting from the same starting line with the West. They are building Internet of Things for smart meters, smart cities, for their problems. We should build Internet of Things use cases for our problems. Counterfeit currency, we always think, why do we get duplicate 500 rupee notes? But we can put a simple chip in our notes, and no one can counterfeit our currency anymore. No one can, if someone is putting 1 crore in a box and taking it from the road, the notes will start shouting in a digital manner, black money, black money, black money on the road.
Thank you so much. I'd like to open up the next 10 minutes to the audience and students here. What are the questions that you'd like to pose to this panel? Can someone help with, picking? Yes, sir.
Okay, the panel discussed a lot about convergence. Convergence would be the smart word, but are we not, in the name of Internet of Things, centralizing the whole ecosystem? And while I say that, are we not also shrinking the whole ecosystem? For example, Tata. What if Tata tomorrow, in the name of Internet of Things, also starts controlling the healthcare system? And through the healthcare system, the medical fields and the biometrics and the biomedical sciences. So are we not, in the name of Internet of Things, also trying to infuse on us more insecurity of the network, insecurity of the ecosystem, and moving towards shrinking of the stuff?
Who would you like to ask the question to?
The whole panel, well, they can put
All right. Since I've been asking the question so far, I'll do some answering. You were right in saying that there's a convergence from standpoint of shrinking the ecosystem. But the way you look at it, the ecosystem that's shrinking is essentially the collaboration of people that essentially had their own business value in the products or services that they offered, and understanding that the dependence that they have on working with other players, right? So you may be competitors in the marketplace, but you're also collaborators in another sense. The biggest impact that this has is on the front of product innovation, right? Previously, R&D was an area that would probably have protracted cycles. Also, even if you had a great idea, you couldn't really bring it to market because the amount of investment that was required to make it come real was probably prohibitive for you. Now, through this process of shrinking the ecosystem and building separate value statements for all of the players that are actually part of this value chain, you're able to influence the degree of investment that actually comes into your idea and able to accelerate the cycle of innovation, right? I think Amol also spoke of this fact that 10 years ago, what was science fiction is now reality. The difference is that what is science fiction today will probably be reality 5 months from now, right? So that's the big difference in terms of the shrinking of the ecosystem. From a security standpoint, yes, I don't think we've completely accumulated all of the information that we need to make meaningful analysis or even decisions. Protocols, standards, what should be guidelines around where we are reaching into privacy issues or creating privacy issues where we should not be. I think these haven't yet been decided. You have a topic tomorrow on big data and BI. I think that will play a large part also in influencing the behavior for this ecosystem and shaping it. Thank you.
Can I add to what he said? See, there is a difference which you need to understand. I agree that the conventional ecosystem is shrinking, but at the same time, a much larger ecosystem is getting generated. Whatever was not obvious is becoming a reality. So that means you never had a thought, at least few years back, that a network company can do a healthcare. Okay, there is a health presence which is happening that in the remote villages for India, specifically taking the India-specific context, how do you offer an expert doctor's services to a person who is sitting remotely, who just needs probably a blood sample reports and the pulse rate or something of basic vitals of a human being? So this is a new ecosystem happening. Nobody thought that a network company would get into an healthcare and set up a booth. Now there is a mobile healthcare which is happening. So it's a collaboration of automotive company, a healthcare company, and a network company, which is network operators and service integrators who would offer these kind of services. The things are changing at a drastic rate. So yes, at one part, the conventional ecosystem as we saw is changing, but at the same time, a much bigger ecosystem is generating. Regarding the security aspect of it, yes, there are things. But I believe the time would tell. The way I see it, we have to unlearn few things. We have to relearn new things. Whatever we did in the past. the entire policing would have to have an entire cybercrime cell, much bigger than what they have today. This is not something which has happened. So I totally agree with Mudassar what he said, that we have to learn it from an India perspective. We cannot mimic the West. There would be some certain learnings which will happen mutually, but definitely there would be a different aspects, and the awareness is the most important thing. The awareness, as it would come into the play, the things would shape much differently. And time would definitely tell us how successful we are in that.
And one more thing is the empowerment. Internet of Things actually empowering each and every individual in a different way.
Moving on, if I could continue. We talked about various aspects, throwing your attention to the region-wise aspects, or the global aspects. Would Internet of Things affect that? Would we actually, as a human level, follow one protocol? Or would still it be segmented to regional, say US, Europe, India, Asia? Would that be affected at some level?
From a technology perspective, if you look at it, I mean, it doesn't matter which marketplace, it doesn't matter whether you're emerging or, advanced. The dissemination of technology is essentially the same, right? So if you talk about the legal elements, there would be localization, regional aspects to it. But if you talk about standardization from a technology standpoint, I don't really see, why we would localize something. The applications, as my colleagues rightly pointed out, the applications are where you would need to identify that localization. But from a standardization perspective, probably bodies in different areas would come together, because ultimately, that collaboration cannot be facilitated, right? Companies also transcend borders today. So you would not necessarily be working with only local players, you'd be working with international players, and therefore you would need to have some standardization on that front.
Thank you.
I think we have time for one more question before we can close. Yes, sir.
Hello, sir. I'm Abhishek from Marketing Department, 2014 batch. There are, the panel has given a great views on the topics regarding the IoT, the Internet of Things, but there are many concerned issues, like Google is already facing the claim that they are preaching or spying on the personal data of the, the individuals. Moreover, in healthcare, we need the physical presence of the human interaction with the doctor. Now, with this IoT, there is a lot of virtualization, but not the physical interaction with the doctors. Moreover, if you talk about the India, there are a lack of connectivity. There are many issues in which the customer are now coming back from 3G to 2G. They are not easily implementing 4G. So all these different drawbacks or the limitations can't affect the IoT's scope in India or for our country to excel and to grow.
I think you touched on a number of things. The one that I caught was that despite the fact that you can probably offer prescriptions remotely, there is still the human element of doctor-patient interaction, right? Yes. I want you to hold that thought. We're actually going to close this panel. I'm going to ask my panelists to talk about the people element. So we'll probably come to that there. Is that okay?
Sure.
Anyone else have a question?
You did mention about the infrastructure part, right? The 2G and 3G part of it.
Yes, sir.
See, like I said before, it's the ecosystem and how it is evolving. It is about us, that how much we are investing. Do we have things for the name's sake, or we really have them? This is a question that needs to be answered. Do we really have roads, or we have potholes?
Mix.
No, so that's a question to be answered.
I'll give you an example. Like in one of the cities, one of the providers, operators, they launched a 4G service. It was actually not a 4G. Okay? So sometimes it's marketing, but they actually tried to capture the market, knowing that even with a very scrappy product service, if they go out and do it, and somehow manage the perception, they will be able to take care of the market share later on. It's a very dangerous ploy, but it happens that way sometimes. But truly, any new thing you do, there will be always some positives, some negatives. Any new thing you do, there will be some failure, some success, right? And that's why sometimes it's said, like if you are the first mover, you have MBA college, like first mover advantage, first mover advantage. Sometimes it's said actually second mover is better than the first mover. Because second mover will know what the first mover did and what they did wrong. And many times the first mover will do something wrong. Okay? And I'm about to go to another topic. I stop here because there is a saying that copying is bad, But you see what, there is a company called Rocket, what they're doing. Just go and find out. Okay? So you can create value even copying. Copying is not always bad as long as you do it the right way and do it better than the who invented it.
Imitation still is the sincerest form of flattery. I think we do have time for one more question before we can close. Can I have somebody from the back of the room, please? Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon, sir. My name is Veronica, and my question is regarding the platform and the standardization which is required for the Internet of Things. Like many companies are innovating in bits and the pieces. So my question is, what is the approach of the industry and what are the steps are taken by the industry in this field?
Yes. All right. I'll start again. Thank you. So one part of standardization comes down to, the early movers that Indraneel was speaking about, right? Who's the person that's actually investing in building a product that then relies on a standard? The second part of it is how much financial muscle do you actually have? Because in this space, we really don't have too many regulatory bodies, right? You're working with existing outdated regulatory, structures, and then trying to build on top of that. So to some extent, standards are being driven by early movers, by people, the companies that actually have the financial muscle to build a product that has widespread demand, for example, right? And the third part of it is, the fragmented kind of, touch into all the existing regulatory bodies. So I don't know if there is a concerted effort by the industry, but you can certainly see that, from a web services standpoint, there are standards that have emerged, right? And web services, again, have been, around for a relatively shorter period of time. Open APIs in communication, right? That's another way where organizations are seeing the benefit of having somebody else actually invest in the technology that they're building. The last part of it, which I think is very, very important, is crowdsourcing, right? Most companies are beginning to realize that they probably don't have all the answers. Google, again, market leader in innovation, recently opened up the wearable devices piece. It was a precursor to the Google Glass, but they released it to a select segment of users free of charge and said that you have 6 months to essentially come up with ideas on how we can actually leverage this product. So they came up with the product before they found the applications, right? So I think some of the standard will be a natural evolution of that process as well. Anyone else like to comment on?
Yeah, I'd like to comment on that. So what we are looking at in the industry, thanks to Cognizant having a wide spectrum view across industry, is that all the industry verticals are evolving in silos. So if you take a mobile health, for example, you'll have a Bluetooth interface to a sensor. But if you go into the utilities part, for example, smart metering, I'm delivering a smart metering project in the UK, and we are seeing that the smart metering is going over the mobile internet. So on the sensor level, at least we are seeing that across industry verticals, we are seeing that the devices are communicating through the gateways or to the platforms in proprietary ways at the moment. And so what we will see is an evolutionary approach, as he rightly said. These silos will come up first, and then people will start putting a horizontal layer on top of it to intercommunicate between these silos eventually. So it will evolve. So right now we cannot wait for standards to come in place. No company will wait for that. They will come up to the market, as he said, first with their solutions, and then they will see how widespread that adoption is, and that itself might become a standard eventually, right?
Right. Just to add on that, actually, the adapters that basically we talk about, whether you have seen the network management or you've seen any other technology that actually took it forward, right? There was SNMP, there was CLI, there was web framework, and again, mobile interfaces as well. So adapters started getting built up. It's not that one standard was good above the other and stuff like that. If solutions are developed and market has adopted a particular standard, the other companies have quickly adopted with a standard northbound interface or a southbound interface to basically cater to a particular standard, as long as they know that they need to talk to a various ecosystem and get either the APIs through them or the data through them or send data through the northbound interface. So that's how the things will emerge. As this is an evolving industry, things will emerge as we see process.
I think business outcomes will drive standardization. There's nothing else. The best example is Linux, okay? And if you look at a a mobile charger, for example. In your family, if you have a Nokia, you need a separate charger. If you have a Samsung, you need to have a separate charger. If you have Ericsson, you will need to have a separate charger. And it still continues. And what's evolving is now there's a standardization happening there, okay? That's driven by business outcomes. Now you can use an USB connector which goes with multiple mobiles. So standardization is a necessity, okay? So it'll get done soon in every field.
One more aspect of this is that as long as IoT as a technology is used by businesses primarily, there may be proprietary technologies that may be used. But once it's taken to the mass market, when it reaches consumers, that's when standardization will really, really play out. I mean, all of us, he spoke about Linux, and there's the example of Sony and Apple. So I think it's when it reaches that critical mass, standardization is but very, very critical.
Yeah, see, I totally agree with the views put forth by my co-panelists. It is the consumers who would make a shout about it, even though there is a early mover advantage, a first mover, or a catch-up game, and so on and so forth, but still it will be the convenience of the end consumer which would drive into this. And what Kalki said in the beginning is basically important is that eventually we expect a regulatory body to evolve, to do at least some kind of protocols which can be standardized. But in my personal view, I don't see all of these getting standardized, because the technologies will evolve, the new technologies will come, and we might find that whatever we had been banking on thus far are having some limitations. So that will be an evolving part. It cannot happen. It's like just the IP ranges which were there, the IP version 4, were considered to be outliving probably a generation, but that did not happen, and then we had to get into a V6 range of protocols for getting the new IP addresses. That's all thanks to Internet of Things. So something like that is always expected along these lines. Something which was considered to be a very good format or standard is outdated. Example is a few years back there were these VHS tapes which were very popular across the world. You don't find them anywhere. You don't find even the DVD players anymore. It's a problem that you don't find a cassette player when you have the old cassettes at home. So the formats will always keep on changing, but there would be some regulatory high-level guidelines which would prevail, which will make sure that the communication is possible.
Thank you. I don't think we can take any more questions. I'd like to summarize. We looked at trends. We looked at impact to the India marketplace. We looked at convergence as well as telco from Indranil's perspective. We saw some great use cases from Ravi. I want to close this panel by asking each panelist to share one thought on the people element, right? I mean, technology is great, but as the gentleman there rightly pointed out, you cannot do away with person-to-person interaction. So I'd like to start with Mr. Sandeep. What's the one thought you'd like to leave us with, sir?
Sure. I think it's a boon and a doom. So from a boon point of view, a lot of personalized services. So as a customer, as a consumer, I get to get what I need to, rather than getting bogged with the information and with the products that is kind of available outside. And as a doom, I'm actually compromising the privacy, the security aspect, and a lot of data that actually is getting shared without my consciousness and stuff like that. So that's...
Thank you, Sandeep. How about yourself, Ravi?
See, we're still grappling with this device, right? We're still figuring it out. But when it comes to Internet of Technology, it's just going to get crazy. But the real thing is, what value does it really add to you? That's when it's going to really impact your lives. For example, what if, what do people like us love to do? We'd love to take selfies. Imagine a drone flying out and, tweeting out a selfie right at that point in time. So, I mean, unless it's mass use cases that will drive adoption, I think that's what we'll all will look forward to. These business use cases will always be, it'll always be innovating, but these mass use cases will really drive it to the next level.
Mr. Indranil?
Yeah, are you going to take a selfie now? Or? So, I would say something which pertains to these groups. Look, all of you would become managers, leaders very soon, right? And when you go to the industry, like when we started our career, it was about knowing the right answer and how to find the right answers. Going forward, all of us as leaders, managers, we need to know how to ask the right questions. Answers should be given by machines, be it supercomputer, be it a Google. I think Tarun was talking about the skills you need. I would add one more skill. your ability to ask the right questions. The answers are already there somewhere.
Thank you, Indranil. How about yourself, Amol?
I would have a little human level trying to probably answer your question. See, the Internet of Things, evolution of mobility, having smart gadgets in everybody's pockets, the life is changing, and it's creating a huge amount of stress, knowingly, unknowingly, onto the human relationships. Your friends are not next door to you anymore. You don't play with them in the grounds. You play with them in some kind of a tournament online. It's an altogether different human relationship, which is creating a stress, knowingly, unknowingly. If you look at it, there was some statistics which says that at least during a common smartphone user looks at the smartphone device at least 1 lakh times in a day. So what are we going to? Where are we headed? It is going to create a huge differentiation, but at the same time, it's up to us as humans that we do not become matrix, and we still value the physical human relationship part. That touch, what you talk from a doctor's perspective, that concern which is there, you are sitting next to your friend and family and talking to them, I believe is very, very critical, no matter how social we get, how digital we get. That is going to be one of the very, very important factors in the next life to come in the digital space, is what I feel.
Thank you very much, Amol. Ravi?
While machines can do great things for us, I think a personal element in a relationship needs to be protected. It's very important. Interestingly, I got a message today, and just take it on the lighter side, okay? Mobile comes, camera gone. Mobile comes, wristwatch gone. Mobile comes, torch gone. Mobile comes, radio gone. Mobile comes, MP3 gone. Mobile comes, letters gone. Mobile comes, calculators gone. Mobile comes, computer gone. Mobile comes, peace of mind gone. Still it's there. People are getting dumb and phones are getting smart.
What is it?
We are at the end of the time, so I will not take too much time. So we have already seen the launch of a technocracy now. The Apples and the Googles are actually defining what we need today. In the future, with 5,000 to 6,000 smart devices talking to each other, talking to us when we go home, will we be able to spend time with our kids when our devices are vying for attention? Will we have healthy relationships with each other? That time will tell. But that is it. I mean, the technocracy is already there, and it will just go from level to level in the future.
Thank you, everyone, for being patient with us and hearing us out. I also want to thank this esteemed panel for their thoughts. Hopefully it was good for you. Thank you very much.
We thank our dear panelists to have joined us and would now request our colleagues to felicitate the panelists with mementos as a token of our gratitude and appreciation.
Great job. Very good.
We request the audience to please be patient for a few moments while we set the stage for the next keynote address.